Hello there. Welcome back to the channel. It's a Heart Like Esther's. I hope everyone's out there is doing well. You know, you and your families and your loved ones. It's been a lot going on in the spirit. I don't know if anybody can feel the shift in the atmosphere. I've been having many sleepless and restless nights, unable to really sleep and rest because I've been up in prayer. The warfare has been very heavy. And those who know. Um, I want to thank you guys who've been clicking on listening to these videos. It helps, I guess, get some movement here on YouTube. I mentioned before, like, this is not for like the likes and all of that. Hadn't ever planned on getting a YouTube channel. I'm not a content creator. It's not my thing. But again, God led me to do this, and so I'm being obedient in doing so. Um, I also want to mention I was able to listen to some of my videos and you could barely hear them clearly. And I'm so sorry about that, but I'm not going to go back and redo them. I'm just going to try to ensure moving forward that the sound is a little bit, the audio is clearer. And I was using like a mic. And apparently it's trash. So I'm not going to use that one again. It wasn't expensive, so I think I may need to invest in something a little bit, you know, uh, better, of quality. And so I need some upgrades all over the board in terms of my devices. I'm operating on like old gear, so I'm the type who like I'll keep it moving until the wheels fall off. So but when you're doing this type of thing, your production's supposed to be well. So that said, I also want to mention something too. I be discussing little things, and sometimes I get off topic, um, or I'm bringing up, and like in my last, the previous video, I think episode 18 in the continued version, um, I. I may bring up some things in the past, but it doesn't mean that I'm harping on it. It's just, my past is a part of my journey. So, I just try to highlight and paint a picture of things you know, that I've been through. So, I just wanted to say that, I know every day, even like, when you're going through things similar to what I've been through, it ain't easy to just get over it. It ain't every day you see a full blown devil with horns standing over you in your bedroom. So it'll be difficult to like get rid of you know, um, those pictures, those experiences, smelling sulfur in your home and just and all the outside of the supernatural entities and stuff, like just the things that came with it, like the losses and the setbacks and the delays. Yeah, you won't be able to forget that ever, and I think you have these experiences and God allows them so that you can, talk about it, tell these stories to someone else and help save souls for the kingdom. Okay, so anyway, I want to get back to where I left off in my time in Miami. I left off where I was just offered a job. I was staying in the little, the generator hotel, and I couldn't remember what type of place it was. I kept saying communal space. It was they're hostels. That's what it was, and a lot of like, and I mentioned that a lot of people were like international travelers because they are the most that like they stay and frequent those type of places. And I wasn't familiar. Anytime I went to Miami, I stayed in, 4-star, 5-star hotel, but I was balling on a budget. And I was actually looking for Airbnb, and that's how I came across this place. And it's a lot of them like that. I just selected this place and never tried. Well, I tried one other, but I liked this one better. The other one didn't have hotels. I mean, hotels, that I'm bugging. They didn't have elevators, but this one did. So I liked it that, because if you're bringing in luggage, you don't want to be like always carrying up and down the stairs, But that setup was real cute too, And so, anyway, I was offered a job at the 24-hour laundry. I had went and visited to watch my things that were in my car, and I just started chatting with the owner. I think he was, and he offered me the job, and I was thrilled. I was so happy because I was both desperate and relieved. Because I was securing a position that will help cover my hotel stay without, me keep depleting my funds until I, you know, found something. I landed something in my career field. However, on the very same day I was set to start, the rug was just pulled out from under me once again. Those forces, those dark forces, seemed to be sent to block and monitor me, had started to work in my life again. I started to notice that everything I tried to do was being like rejected. The room rate had doubled on me, and which was still affordable because I was only paying like $22. And so you calculate that, but when you don't have no money and you're not like there vacationing, you actually, that's your home, temporarily home right now. It wasn't a good thing for me. I had kind of calculated everything and was trying to figure these things out. So I was already like stretching my limited funds to their breaking point. But whenever someone did occupy one of the bunks in that room, because it was 4 bunk room, all female room, and I just one time decided to ask one of the ladies who came in. I think she was from Australia, and then it was another lady. She was from Russia, and they were paying that $22 rate. So I went down to the front desk to find out why they were doubling my rent, and because I'm trying to explain to them, I've been here spending money. So why are you doubling? And it just became aggressive and it was awkward because I'm like, what? But it was the demonic forces that were at play. That was a part of that, rejection. Those witches were manipulating the energy around me, to create these negative experiences in my life. But I was like maybe less than $1,000 at this point, and I would try not to call my son, asking him for money. I didn't want him to worry and start asking me 1,000 questions. He was already thinking something, I was doing wrong, because nobody, if you not in your Bible, you've never been through anything like this, you wouldn't know. So I got tired of trying to explain myself to people. But what I did, out of panic, and desperation, I started searching like some of the women shelters, like Googling, trying to find some help. And unfortunately, every place I found, rejection. It was either like no beds available, or they wouldn't accept me because I wasn't a Florida resident, and just all this nonsense. And I just felt sad, and like I started to get, discouraged. So now I'm thinking like, let me get, you know, position myself to get on the road and get, either to, go try out Tampa, or since I was already in Florida, And I was also looking to go to like Fort Lauderdale or Jacksonville. So I went to my storage unit like that very next day because I started like thinking like I need to like sleep in my car because I need to save some money. I don't know what's gonna happen until I, within like I had planned on like that weekend getting on the road and just getting out of Miami because nothing was happening there. And so I met a couple while I was in my storage and they had just left Tampa and they were saying they left because of due to a lack of jobs. So I'm like, well, what brings you to Miami? And it was because the young lady had family there, so they were, they could be there until they, put, something was set in stone for them. So you know, I always like to talk to people just to get some insight or some information or direction, but I always like to try things for myself because what's, not good for somebody else could be good for you. But before I left Georgia, I have researched. I never, one thing about me, I've never been afraid of change. I've done that all my life. I've traveled by myself, different cities, different countries. And I just never been afraid to try things. I've always been curious about the world. But one thing I don't do, I don't make moves without reserving a bag. So the research is to land a job opportunity so when I get there, everything else will fall in place because I know I have my finances in orders to, you know, to do things. So I noticed, like with the job market in Florida before I got there, they mainly focused on like politics, healthcare, and like insurance. That those were the industries, like real estate and stuff like that. So and Miami had an emerging finance, industry there. So I applied, for places in that industry and also healthcare. I, had a strong administrative background for healthcare, or for so I I had already put my marbles in a basket and spreading them around. But I just struggled to find a break, and so I just decided to just prepare myself to sleep in my car. I went and got some ice for my cooler that was in my trunk, and parking wasn't difficult there. I bought a trial membership at a gym so that I'll be able to shower and take advantage of the AC and work out at the same time. Try to ease my mind. While I was going through all these trials and tribulations, and because it's very hard to find Wi-Fi and like the outlets in Miami. Because a lot of businesses there, they don't want homeless people. I never seen that huge of a homeless population in Florida ever. When I went to travel, just to hang out, I never really paid attention to that. But it's when you are homeless, you right there, and you could see it. But I spent a lot of time in my car just trying to save gas, having my car on, running and stuff. And so I just did all my research there. I had to purchase like one of those little generator things to plug in, and that was like $300, 280 something bucks. Because I'm thinking, this may be it. I may be sleeping in my car forever. This is what it is right now until I can figure out, and find my way. But yeah, at this point, I'm just sitting, always daydreaming about like how I supposed to be at this age, just, nearing my retirement, just, not having to worry about this type of struggle, and I just found myself in a scary and familiar place. meaning constantly in desperation for the last couple of years, looking for employment. And now, I'm like that while I'm in Miami. So I just, I sought solace in like Miami's, green spaces. They had a lot of parks, a lot of nature and beaches. And I would just find myself there just drifting off and talking to God, like, trying to find why. Like I'm being upright and righteous. I'm in my word. I'm even fasting. Fasting was good because I could save some money on food and get close to the Lord. But I'm thinking, I'm looking for deliverance, thinking whatever these people are doing, these witches, what they cooking up in the spirit late nights, that it will drop off. But, you know, um, it just never happened. And so despite having visit like many times, like I mentioned, I lived there in the 80s, and I'm referring to Miami. Now I'm just confronted with the harsh reality that, like, it's not only is it a large homeless population there, but now I was a part of it. And the experience was just really challenging. And I say that because, I was a Black individual, not just a Black woman. It was difficult navigating through Miami, because the Latin community, they exhibit a negative attitude towards Black people in Florida. And I was just like, wow, I never saw that before. So, I started having my doubts on even living there and looking for a job. And I started think maybe too that plays a role. I'm not multilingual, bilingual, poquito, just a little. Living in New York, you gotta understand it and speak a little of it because it's so many languages. So I've learned. Fortunately, my son, he speaks Spanish fluently and a couple other language because he went to school there. And so I I just would find like safe places to park like at night, and just crawl in my back seat and sleep. I have my pillow and my blanket and my cooler. And I would refill that with ice daily just to keep like my sandwiches and fruit, and anything I needed to keep cold. But one day, things just took a turn for the worse. I had planned on washing my car because I'm ready to get on the road because Miami ain't working out for me. So, and I'm starting to like just deplete all my funds. And like I said, I didn't want to keep asking my son for money. And so I, um, I remember the night that same night, I was preparing to get lost. Um, I I started having these crazy dreams again, but I couldn't interpret it. I didn't understand it. Like I couldn't even write the dreams down because like I couldn't remember them, and that is a part of the enemy. Um, Plan, like they erase your dreams, these demons, they erase your dreams. And so that started to happen. But the morning, and whatever those dreams were, I knew I whatever it was I needed, I kept asking God, please bring it back to my remembrance, reveal what it is if it's from you. But I would start to cancel those dreams just in case it was demonic and whatever they were trying to make happen manifest in my life. I was already experiencing so much torment and sabotage, with setback and delays, over and over again. So, but I remember too when I did wake up, I know I could feel it like in my soul that the Lord, the Holy Spirit was trying to wake me up to pray, in those hours. And I was like, I hadn't been sleeping well, and it's in the car. I would be up all night because I was not comfortable sleeping in my car. I wasn't used to that, you know. I have done that like while I was traveling and I'm driving and you pull over to the little lodges to gas up and stuff. You would see a lot of people there, but just like really being homeless and sleeping, I've never done that. So I felt very uncomfortable, and then at that time, it was the first couple of nights. So I didn't have those covers. Eventually I purchased some on Amazon. The covers you put in your windshield and on the windows to darken it so nobody could peek in. But I always felt uncomfortable with that too because I felt like it will draw attention. And me being single, if somebody came, like, what am I going to do? I don't have a weapon or anything. I kept me some mace in my banger, which we call in New York. That's the what do you call it? The doctors, the spac, the what the doctors use to open you up. Yeah, I kept one of those. My son used to make sure I had them. Because I used to ride the train a lot too. You can't. There's no parking in the city when you go to work. You have to. And sometimes I come home in the evening. But yeah. So I'm going to end it here because it's getting ready to cut off, and I'll be right back with another one to continue on this. And I notice I've been saying the same thing, not knowing where I stopped or where I left off, but I won't do that this time, okay? One moment. Thank you for your patience.